The National Desk, America's News Now.
The largest e-commerce company in the world accused of stifling would-be competition. The FTC makes its decision on what to do with Amazon.
Stick with it, because you deserve the significant raise you need and other benefits.
Let's get it!
Let's get back who we lost, okay?
President Joe Biden takes his support of unions to a whole new level, making presidential history in the progress. And rampant crime across the country causes a retail giant to make hard choices. Which national chain was hit this time, and how many stores are closing for good? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Amazon is inflating prices and overcharging sellers. That's what a sweeping lawsuit filed today by the FTC and 17 states now alleges of the e-commerce giant. The company now facing one of the most significant legal challenges in its 30-year history. The suit claims Amazon is violating antitrust laws by using its dominance to stifle competition. For example, by burying listings that are offered at lower prices on other sites. It's the outcome of a years-long investigation into the company. The FTC and states are seeking a permanent injunction to prohibit Amazon from engaging in the conduct, but it's unclear if they want to force a breakup of the retail giant. Amazon, meantime, disputes the claims. Today, President Biden did something no other sitting president has done before. He joined striking auto workers in Michigan on the picket lines in his strongest show of support yet. Biden used a bullhorn to address union members, reminding them of their good deeds back in 2008 to help keep the industry alive and strong amidst a financial crisis.
Made a lot of sacrifices, gave up a lot, and the companies were in trouble. But now they're doing incredibly well. And guess what? You should be doing incredibly well, too.
The show of support comes as the UAW strike hits its 12th day. More than 18,000 workers remain off the job, and we have a look at which states are really feeling the biggest impact. According to reporting by the Detroit Free Press, 6,850 workers in the state of Michigan on the picket lines today. The next biggest is Ohio with 6,000 workers, and then followed by Missouri with 3,600 workers now idle. But again, 20 states in total, they have factories closed across the country from California to New York. As for what the numbers look like by companies, Stellantis, it has the most workers striking right now at more than 7,900. Then you have GM at over 7,000, and then Ford at more than 3,000. Bearing in mind, Ford was the only company spared from the UAW's most recent strike expansion because of what the union says amounted to progress in the talks. It comes as we learn Ford has tapped the brakes on building a new electric vehicle battery plant in Michigan. The $3.5 billion plant was expected to go online in 2026, but now Ford says spending on the plant has been limited until the company is confident about its ability to competitively operate the facility. The UAW called the move shameful, describing it as a threat by Ford to cut jobs at a plant that's not open yet. Meanwhile, the Canadian auto union Unifor is in contract talks with GM today. The union is taking a different tactic than the UAW of targeting one automaker at a time. Last week, they came to terms with Ford on a new 3-year deal and have been able to avoid strikes against any of the automakers, unlike the UAW in the U.S. And new tonight, a judge has ruled that former President Trump committed fraud by overvaluing his assets and exaggerating his net worth. The lawsuit was brought by New York's Attorney General. Trump's attorneys wanted the case tossed out. The judge ordered some of Trump's business licenses to be rescinded. He will decide on more claims from the lawsuit after a trial starting in October. And all charges have now been dismissed against Mark Dial, the Philadelphia police officer who had been charged with the killing of Eddie Azari. After watching video of the fatal shooting, the judge ruled in favor of Dial, saying he acted in self-defense because the victim held a knife in his hand when he was shot. Philadelphia's district attorney vows to appeal. Hunter Biden, meantime, he continues to hit back, now suing Rudy Giuliani for computer fraud, accusing the former Trump attorney of illegally sharing content from the younger Biden's infamous laptop. The suit filed today claims Giuliani and his personal lawyer, Bob Costello, contributed to the total annihilation of Hunter Biden's digital privacy. His lawyers want a jury trial. J.P. Morgan Chase, meantime, is set to pay $75 million to the U.S. Virgin Islands to settle claims that it enabled Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operations. The bank agreed today to send $55 million to local charities to help for victims, and $20 million will go towards legal fees. J.P. Morgan already said it would pay $290 million in another lawsuit related to the case. Alabama's congressional map is going back to the drawing board again. For the second time, the Supreme Court denied the state of Alabama's request that the 2024 elections be held under a map made by Republican lawmakers. In June, the High Court ordered Alabama to redraw its congressional map to include a second majority black district or something close to it. A new map drawn by a special master appointed by a federal court will now proceed with greater representation of black voters. Lawyers for an Alabama inmate are trying to stop him from getting executed using a new method. The state attorney general wants to carry out the inmate's death sentence using nitrogen hypoxia. It's been approved in 3 states, but it has never been used on an inmate. Attorneys argue he would be a test subject for an experimental method. California is doubling taxes on guns and ammunition and using that money for public school security. Governor Gavin Newsom signed the law today. The federal government has a 10 to 11% tax on guns and ammunition. The law adds another 11% tax, making California the only state with its own tax. The California Rifle and Pistol Association vows to challenge the new tax in court. And there are 4 days remaining for Congress to avert a federal government shutdown. And the 2 chambers, well, they're taking different approaches as the deadline nears. In the Senate, a short-term bipartisan short-term funding package has been agreed to in principle that would extend the timeline by about a month. While in the House, Speaker McCarthy is changing direction with a continuing resolution that he says will secure the country.
The government's open. If the president was willing to change part of his plans along this border, we can fund this government going forward. This is a call that comes from across the nation, from the highest Democrats and the Republicans, on something that can unite the nation as a whole to get that done.
One of the sticking points of a potential government funding bill here is whether or not to include money to further aid Ukraine in their war against Russia. Our Christine Frizzell takes a closer look at how the money is being spent.
Well into its second year, the war in Ukraine rages on. Thousands of miles away in Washington, the battle about that war and how much and whether to support it carries on as well. Just since Russia's invasion in February of last year, the U.S. has contributed nearly $44 billion in military aid. And now, new revelations on CBS's 60 Minutes that U.S. tax dollars are funding seed and fertilizer for Ukrainian farmers and covering the salaries of first responders there.
Russia's invasion shrank Ukraine's economy by about a third. We were surprised to find that to keep it afloat, the U.S. government is subsidizing small businesses.
Why does that help Ukraine win the war? Because economy is the foundation of everything.
Critics argue the U.S. economy and its small businesses could use the help.
Right now, those businesses are suffering under inflation, high gas prices, and they don't have any access to credit because of the rapid rise of interest rates. And the president needs to focus on our small business owners here at home.
Others pointing to the need for more assistance at the southern border in the midst of a massive surge of migrants as the country braces for a likely government shutdown.
If there's a shutdown, U.S. government workers will not be paid, but Ukrainian workers will be paid by the U.S. taxpayer. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows for spending like this to another country.
Senator Rand Paul vowing to prevent future aid, as others warn of the consequences.
Without aid, Ukraine could run the very strong risk of being defeated.
American support for Ukraine is not charity.
And with recent polls showing waning support for providing aid to Ukraine, the issue's actually played an outsized role in negotiations for a spending bill here on Capitol Hill and could be a key factor if there is indeed a shutdown. Amira?
And Christine, President Biden has said, quote, as long as it takes when asked about how long he will provide aid. It's pretty vague. Is there any sign the White House is rethinking its support at this point?
None at all. In fact, the White House recently asked for an additional $24 billion in aid to Ukraine. And I should say, you know, we have heard from some of those congressmen who are opposed to aid. They are the loudest voices, but they're not the majority. The majority here on Capitol Hill still supports providing aid for Ukraine. And they're warning if Ukraine is defeated, that could mean a much more emboldened Russia and China.
Okay, more to come on this. Christine Frizzau in D.C. for us. Thank you. And coming up, how Americans feel about the economy right now and their outlook for the next few months, according to newly released data. Then a program allowing for the safe surrender of a newborn hopes to expand across the country. Why the need appears to be growing. And a new program in Alabama trying to bring more STEM teachers into the workforce. How it works and why it's unique. We are back in just 90 seconds. Welcome back. Republicans are kicking the Biden impeachment inquiry into high gear, announcing just today a first hearing date for this coming Thursday with a trio of witnesses. Led by the House Oversight Committee, lawmakers say we can expect to hear from a forensic accountant, a former Justice Department tax attorney, and a conservative legal scholar. They say evidence will be presented and that we'll hear those experts weigh in on alleged crimes committed by the Bidens. The drumbeats for New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez to resign are growing louder and louder amid federal corruption and bribery charges, and they're coming from within his own party. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more.
The tarnished senior senator from New Jersey continuing to lose support from within the Democratic Party.
It'd probably be a good idea if he did resign.
On Tuesday, fellow New Jersey Senator Cory Booker breaking his silence with a call for Menendez to resign, writing, "Stepping down is not an admission of guilt, but an acknowledgement that holding public office often demands tremendous sacrifices," adding, "Stepping down is best for those Senator Menendez spent his life serving." Booker joins a growing list of Democratic senators, including several facing tough campaigns next year, calling for Menendez to step down. Support not faring better in his home state. Democratic Governor Phil Murphy among the first to pull his support and call for an immediate resignation. Menendez was indicted last week on federal bribery charges and faces allegations of public corruption. An FBI raid turned up nearly $500,000 in cash, gold bars worth hundreds of thousands, and a Mercedes. Prosecutors claim these were given to the senator and his wife by 3 New Jersey businessmen in exchange for information that would benefit them personally and the government of Egypt. In a Monday press conference, Menendez said he will not resign, calling the charges salacious.
Everything I've accomplished, I've worked for, despite the naysayers and everyone who has underestimated me.
Menendez beat similar bribery charges when his case ended in a mistrial in 2017. Just 6 months later, according to prosecutors, he allegedly started taking the bribes cited in his current case. The senator appearing confident he'll win again. Menendez is up for re-election next year. Now, New Jersey Representative Andy Kim has announced a primary run against him. The senator will appear in Manhattan federal court this Wednesday. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Kayla, thank you. The second Republican presidential debate kicks off tomorrow night in Simi Valley, California. Ron DeSantis will literally be at the center of the stage, given the prime spot by the RNC, as 7 GOP hopefuls jockey for a position right behind the frontrunner Donald Trump, who will, of course, be absent again. Among Republican voters, Trump still runs away with 58% right now, but Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he maintains a lead over the rest of the pack with 15%, according to Morning Consult. Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and former Vice President Mike Pence are within striking distance, while Tim Scott, Chris Christie, and Doug Burgum, who will be at the debate, are now in low single digits. Asa Hutchinson, he did not qualify for tomorrow's debate. And it starts tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Most Americans, they favor moving away from the electoral college system, and that's according to a new poll. The Pew Research Center found nearly 2/3 of adults say elections should be changed so that the winner of the popular vote is the one who wins the presidency. About 1/3 favor keeping the current system. The survey also shows Democrats are more likely than Republicans to support moving to a popular vote system. Well, Target is closing 9 stores completely because of theft. Today, the retailer said theft and organized retail crime are threatening people's safety and hurting business big time. The stores that are closing are in New York, Washington, California, and Oregon. The stores will shut down on October 21st. Consumer confidence is on the decline today. The Conference Board said its index dropped from 108.7 in August to 103 in September. It reflects how Americans perceive current economic conditions and their outlook for the next 6 months. The cost of gas and groceries, along with high interest rates, were key factors in the data. And home prices in the U.S. have hit an all-time high. New data showing a national gauge of prices rose for the 6th month in a row, up 0.6% from June to July. And the average existing home price for July was around $406,000. That's according to the National Association of Realtors. This year's total increase has canceled out a drop in prices seen in the second half of last year. Millions of new students across the country are now eligible for free breakfast and lunch at public schools. The Department of Agriculture updated their rule today, lowering the threshold of the families who participated in income-based benefits in public schools from 40 to 25%. This allowed an additional 3,000 schools to give roughly 5 million students access to school meals at no additional cost to families. The Biden administration aims to create a nuclear fusion facility within the next decade. That's what Energy Secretary Granholm has said, adding such pioneering technology can wean us off fossil fuels. Fusion works by pushing hydrogen atoms into one another with enough force that they turn into helium, releasing energy and heat. Widespread use is still decades away. And a deal has been struck to end the writers' strike, but it's not officially over yet. The Writers Guild of America still needs to vote on the tentative agreement reached. The group's leadership boards are expected to hold a vote today. If that vote is approved, the Guild's 11,000 members will then need to vote to ratify the new contract. So now attention has shifted to a deal for SAG-AFTRA, which could be meeting with the studios by the end of the week.
And happy for WGA. I'm also very optimistic that because of their deal, SAG-AFTRA is not far behind.
Meanwhile, the Hollywood Actors Union voted overwhelmingly to expand their strike to include up to 10 of the nation's biggest video game companies. That strike hasn't been enacted yet, but with the authorization, it could come very quickly once negotiations fail. A program which allows for the safe surrender of a newborn now hopes to expand to every state. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares why the need appears to be growing for safe haven baby boxes.
Hey there, everybody. The Safe Haven Baby Box looks like this. They're provided under each state's Safe Haven law and are placed on the outside of a designated fire station or hospital. They allow for the safe surrender of an infant, no questions asked.
I was abandoned as an infant, and so today I give parents an option to keep their child safe that my birth mother didn't have all those years ago.
Monica Kelsey founded this program. This box in Ohio about to be reopened next week after some technical holdups, now one of 167 in 12 states. As state abortion laws have changed,
I don't think any of us really comprehend where we're at right now, but I will say that our hotline calls have doubled. Our surrenders in our boxes have tripled. And this year alone, we've had 14 babies in boxes.
What that is it's a medical grade space that the door opens up and that triggers an alarm that pipes directly to our dispatch center. So our 911 dispatch center that we have internal for our police department automatically gets a camera feed and is able to monitor what's going on in that activity.
That activity then monitored 24/7, leaving Monica wondering, as the technology allows,
if we can just be a small choice for a parent who wants to safely surrender their child, then why wouldn't we go and launch in every state in America?
Now, you can find out more about these Safe Haven Baby Box programs online. Cost about $15,000 to implement them, and the organization takes no government funding. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
Coming up, a new program in Alabama is trying to bring more STEM teachers into the workforce, how it works and why it's unique. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
Motorists at rest stops in Ohio will quickly notice an addition to the men's and women's restroom they may not be used to seeing.
Somewhat alarming, but also, given today's state of affairs, seems very appropriate, taking a stance in case someone is in need.
That's the rationale behind putting naloxone in Ohio rest areas to make sure whoever needs it can get it.
One of the biggest reasons that we undertook this initiative was we were hearing from some local communities that they were actually seeing an increase in overdoses along their roadways and also in the rest areas.
You Teach allows students working towards a STEM degree to train for a teaching certificate at the same time. Program participants take best practices courses designed to teach them how to teach others about science, technology, engineering, or math. The students also have teaching internships.
Experience they will get in these classes where they work with students and they learn about how to talk about science and educate people about science is beneficial to them, whether they become teachers or doctors or scientists.
Arthur Erickson is the creator of Helio Agri-Drones. The Texan started his company in 2015, but it took 4 years to convince farmers using a drone is an effective way to spray chemicals. In the beginning, Helio offered subsidized spraying services to create interest.
Hey, I'm going to go spray your land. Give me 200 acres, not the whole thing. Give me 200 acres. I'll spray it. We did that for several farmers for several seasons, and they saw that they got really good results from the drones despite their lower volumes of capacity.
Kurt George farms rice and almonds in Northern California. His Agri-Drone sprayer holds 18 gallons. He says it's cheaper to operate and faster.
Don't have to wait for an airplane. There's fewer and fewer crop dusters up this way. I can spray when I need to.
We might as well call it the T-Swift effect. Coming up, the big boost Taylor Swift gave to the NFL simply by appearing at a game. Well, you likely won't find this story shocking. Taylor Swift's appearance at the Kansas City Chiefs game to watch Travis Kelce play didn't just turn out a buzzing conversation across the internet. It turned out some major sales. According to sportswear and fan merchandise company Fanatics, Kelce's jerseys was one of the top 5 for the NFL on Sunday with a nearly 400% spike in purchases. That is the power of Swiftie fandom. It is real. That does it for this edition of the National Desk. We invite you to join us again this evening for more coverage of America's top stories. Have a great night.